The Out of Bounds Show is powered by the award-winning by the opening golf courses at Dancing Rabbit Courses at Golf Club.
Is this thing working? Give me some sound over here. Yeah.
The Out of Bounds Show is powered by the award-winning golf courses at Dancing Rabbit Golf Club in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
All right, good morning, good morning. Welcome in to the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. You can watch the show on Facebook and YouTube. Search the Out of Bounds Show. Super, super excited to welcome in a special guest in studio. That's why we built a studio like this. And Major League Baseball All-Star from Ware, Mississippi, with the Houston Astros, Roy Oswalt joins us on the Modelo guest line. And Roy, good morning. Welcome in. How you doing, buddy?
Morning, great.
Glad to have you in. And everything going well this summer?
Man, it's been awesome. Everything's been great. Finally back to normal, I guess you'd say. And everything's going well.
So you will be inducted into the Houston Astros Hall of Fame next weekend, and that's got to be exciting.
Yes, I'm getting to come up with a team for 5 years in the minor leagues, 4.5 years in the minor leagues, and then 10 more in the big leagues. It's kind of like a family.
Sure.
A lot of the guys I got to play with coming through the minor leagues. Got to play with in the big leagues too, and just a special group. Lance Berkman, we came up together. He's also going into the Astros Hall of Fame, and getting to be inducted with him is pretty special.
That's awesome. So you spent 4.5 years in the minors?
4.5 years
before getting called up, and so you go to Ware High School, and you play multiple sports. I saw y'all won a football state championship your senior year, but you're somewhat overlooked, and you end up at Holmes, and you continue to get better and have an awesome junior college career, and then you get drafted, and it gets pretty close between the Houston Astros and Mississippi State Bulldogs. How close? Like, walk us through, I don't know what it was, whether it was 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month or so. How did that all play out?
Well, once I left high school at Ware, coming from a 1A school, you don't have a lot of looks.
Right.
Everyone tend to go to the bigger schools, think that they're facing more competition on a regular basis, and you kind of get overlooked. I think that was one of the main reasons I didn't really get looked at from a lot of the four-year colleges coming out of high school. So I was throwing 90-91 coming out of high school,
which was strong. I mean, back then, I know everybody's throwing faster today, but 90-91 in high school in 1995 and 1996 was bringing it.
Yeah, and especially, I think we had 16 games my senior year, and I pitched every one of them. So,
are you serious?
It wasn't a pitch count back then. That's what I told guys. It was real funny. Once I got in the minor leagues, I had to adjust to a pitch count. They said, after 110 pitches, you're coming out of game. I'm like, no, I'm not coming out of game. And we don't count pitches where I come from. Right. So it was kind of adjustment period there. But once I left Ware, I went to Holmes Community College. The only scholarship I had actually offered to me coming out of high school.
That's incredible.
And went there, and my first year increased in velocity a little. I went 92, 94. After the first year, I grew a little bit. I was actually young. I was 17 when I graduated, so I was a little bit young coming out of high school. Kind of matured a little more when I got into college, and by my second year, I was throwing 97, 96, 97, and guys started coming around a little more after that, picking up velocity. I think one of the biggest things, guys get recruited on size. Wasn't real big coming out of high school, probably 6 foot, 170 pounds. They was looking for the 6'5", 6'6" guys.
Sure.
Wanted to create angle from the mound. And the way I looked at it is if you get guys out, it don't really matter, how tall you are.
Yeah, I mean, Roy Oswalt, Jeff Brantley, they got guys out. and that's what counts, right?
Yeah, and I actually was a draft and follow guy. I got drafted here in junior college, and they've actually done away with it right now. But you could sign a draft and follow. So they offered me $50,000 my first year to go in the 23rd round. I decided to go back to school. That signed a draft and follow. At any time between you get drafted the first year and before the next year's draft, you can sign that. So it's kind of like an insurance policy.
Okay.
So if I'd have went to school and say had an elbow problem or shoulder problem, I could have took the $50,000, went with Houston Astros. But I didn't sign. I didn't sign for the $50,000. I ended up going into the next year's draft and signed back with Houston, and it was kind of between the first and second round pick.
Okay. So Roy Oswalt on the Out of Bounds show going into the Houston Astros Hall of Fame this summer, which is really cool, from Ware, Mississippi. And he's joining us on the Out of Bounds show and the Modelo guest line. I don't know if this is right. Did the scout kind of hide you a little bit? I mean, there's a story there. Back then, today it's hard to hide somebody, right?
Yeah.
And we're the same age. Not like back then was that long ago, but you know what I mean, right? I mean,
I know what you mean.
We didn't have Twitter and YouTube and all this
the good
stuff.
old days. That's
right,
good old days.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have a cell phone in the 90s. So.
Yeah, and me either. Yeah, you could fly under the radar for sure. Like I said, when I started going to play, other schools and stuff, there would be other guys that maybe some guys are looking at that was going to a bigger college or whatever, and I started getting a little more exposure after my first year. Signing that draft and follow kind of locked Houston in, I guess you'd say,
Gotcha.
where other scouts couldn't really talk to me because I was under their rights until I signed.
Brilliant by the Astros.
So I kind of got locked down the first year, but
so how close? All right, you're coming off your sophomore year at Holmes. You're making this jump. You're getting better and better. Astros are bird dogging you, but there's Mississippi State, which is a heck of a baseball program over here, and Ron Polk's still there, and Pat McMahon's back from Old Dominion, phenomenal pitching coach. So, kind of give me how close was it?
Real close. I got recruited by all the SEC schools. I actually went to Alabama, LSU, all of them on recruiting visits.
Okay.
But I lived 40 minutes from Starkville growing
Sure.
up, a Bulldog fan. And I always wanted to play. I always wanted to play at Duty Noble for sure. And that was my dream actually coming out of high school. I really, thought I had the good enough stuff to play there and didn't get looked at them, and kind of broke my heart a little bit.
That hurts me. That hurts me.
It broke my heart a little bit, but
Because we'd have gotten him for 3 years.
I don't want to usurp this interview, but how in the world, as an avid supporter of Mississippi State baseball, how in the world does Polk and company, we've talked about the Seth Smiths and the Stephen Heads and guys like that.
Right.
How do you miss a guy throwing 90 plus in the 90s? That's 30 minutes from your.
I think what Roy said earlier, Ware was 1A. And any assistant coaches tend to gravitate to 4 or 5. Or
Even
6A
John,
school,
even
probably.
John Hevesy would have driven to Roy's high school games. Okay, that's embarrassing.
Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone. Roy Oswalt joining us, going into the Astros Hall of Fame this summer. And so it was close. It comes down to,
I actually called.
it worked out for you, no doubt.
I actually called Pat McMahon. He was the pitching coach there, and they were the scouts was in my house, and we had kind of agreed on a number that if they got to it, that we would sign. Well, they're calling back and forth to Houston, trying to make the number work, and I remember them coming back into the room and say, "Hey, we can make it work." Wow. And so I called Pat actually and told him, I can't turn this down. There's no way I can turn this down, and go 1 year to Mississippi State and try it again. Just on, money wise and
It's a good opportunity.
It's a great opportunity to get go and play in front of a lot of people and learn as you go. So it was really close. Like I said, I really wanted to play there. Sometimes you miss it, but it worked out. It worked out.
Yeah. Houston Astros pitcher Roy Oswalt on the Out of Bounds show. Was there a time? So at this point, you're highly coveted. You get into the Astros minor league baseball organization. You stayed 4.5 years. You obviously had a long career in MLB, but was there a time where you weren't sure if you'd make it, or did you did you feel like the whole time, there's no doubt I'll make the show?
There was a time, the thing with the Astros at the time they signed me, they was, pitcher rich. They had Jose Lima had won 22 games. Mike Hampton won 21 games. Shane Reynolds won 19 games. They was throwing out arms, left and right and winning games. And it was a slow process. It was like, oh, I can't believe you spent 4.5 years in the minor leagues. But like I said, I was 17 when I graduated. So actually, when I signed with them, I was only 19 years old.
Okay.
So I went to first year. They wanted to start me out in rookie ball and get my feet wet because I come from a small school and stuff like that. Well, I only pitched 5 games and didn't give up a run, so they moved me up. And they moved me up to single A, and that year I ended up finishing a year up there just as good as all the other pitchers there. But I was young, compared to them. Most of those was 4-year guys, college guys that was 22, 23 years old, and I'm 19. So I went back to that low A ball the next year and end up leading the league and everything. And so they moved me up to the Midwest League. And Johan Santana and I was on the same pitching staff. So we ended up winning, I don't know, I think we won 14, 13 games apiece up there. And, have a really good ERA. So they didn't protect Johan that year. And they put him on a AAA roster thinking that he was going to slip through. And the Twins picked him up and put him in the big league. So he went from the Midwest League to the big leagues.
Unbelievable.
So if it would have all came together and they would have protected him, it would have been Johan Santana, me, Freddie Garcia, in the big leagues all at one time, which would have been, pretty stout.
Yeah.
I went next year. I started out in A ball, and it's a funny thing because I stayed so many years in A ball. I ended up spending about 3 years in A ball. And then I pitched 3 months in AA and 1 month in AAA in the big leagues.
So I'm trying to do the timeline here.
I was drafted in
Generals.
No, they just went to Texas to Round Rock.
Got it. Okay.
Isn't
that when Nolan Ryan bought it or
That's
something?
Right.
Okay.
Actually,
I couldn't remember.
I was pitching in high A ball, and one of the guys in AA got hurt that year, and it was actually landed on the day I started. So they moved me up for a spot start in AA. And they gave me a ticket to get there and a ticket to get back. They said, only carry enough clothes to get you back home. So I only carried a little suitcase with, set of clothes in it. Well, I ended up pitching 9 innings that night and struck out 15 guys, and they kept me. So it kind of all fell into place.
It did.
And that's where I ran into Nolan Ryan. Nolan Ryan was one of the guys I watched growing up. I loved the way he attacked guys.
Me too.
If you step close to plate, he knock you down. That's the type of pitcher I was. And he was actually at the game that I pitched, first game he came to. And it just kind of lined up. It just seemed like the stars lined up, right. He watched the game. They was going to send me back anyway, that I'm through 9 innings. And he called the GM and said, hey, this guy's staying. You can't send this guy back.
and when Nolan Ryan makes the call, then that's it, right?
So I got to stay. So he stuck up for me, and I got to stay.
Roy Oswalt on the Out of Bounds show, going in the Astros Hall of Fame this summer from Ware, Mississippi. Now lives in Starkville. He and a crew have just opened an amazing restaurant called Taste in Starkville, Mississippi. It's where the veranda was. And lunch, dinner, brunch. And they are rolling, and they're super excited about it. You'll have to check it out, Taste in Starkville, where the veranda was, and then they will be opening 44 Prime in mid-August, right in time for football season. And I think most of you know where the 44 comes from. That would be the guy to my left if you're watching the show, to your right. Blake? No, I got one more. Hang on. Roy Oswalt on the Out of Bounds show and the Modelo guest line. Nolan Ryan was one of my favorite guys. I collected all his baseball cards, all that stuff when I was 9, 10, 11 years old. What has it been like to get to know him and cultivate a relationship with Nolan Ryan?
Just what you'd imagine. You see him the way he was on the field, all business. He's the same way off the field. He's a straightforward guy. His word is what it is. That goes a long ways these days in baseball. If he tells you something, that's what's going to happen. Just been a stand-up guy. Got to meet his whole family. Reed, great guy. He was the president of Astros for a couple of years, and then his other son and daughter, just great family all the way around. Nolan, one of the things that I picked up a lot from him, just watching him on TV, is the way he goes about business. It wasn't none of this showboating type pitching. It was, hey, here it is, hit it if you can. I don't think you can, so I'm going to keep throwing it. And that's the way I felt when I got on the mound. Sure. I felt like I was better than they was at the plate. I'm going to give you my best stuff. And if you can hit it, hats off, but you're going to have to do it 4 times in a row. I'm going to keep coming after you. And one of the best compliments I ever got, Tony Gwynn told Brad Osmus, at the plate one day, he said, every time I step in the box, I feel like I'm 0-2, because I went straight after guys, and that's, a big compliment from a guy that one of the best hitters in the game.
Yeah, Tony Gwynn was one of my favorite players growing up. That's another one. I had all his Donruss, Fleer, Topps, you name it. I had all his baseball cards because, you'd go home. If you lived in the South, you'd go home and you would turn on the Cubs or the Braves, and they played the Padres a lot, right? Because the Padres broke my heart in '84 when they beat the Cubs in playoffs. But Tony Gwynn, amazing. That's a great story. Roy Oswalt on the Out of Bounds show, owner of Taste Restaurant in Starkville, 44 Prime, coming in August. And he and Chef Craig and the team are very, very excited about what they're doing in the culinary world in Starkville, Mississippi. Follow Taste on Facebook. Follow Taste on Facebook. And we've been 3 times now, and it is fantastic. But I haven't hit brunch yet. Plan on doing that. Roy Oswalt on the Out of Bounds show. Where were you when you were either told or took the call that you were coming up to the big league team for the Astros?
I was playing with New Orleans Zephyrs.
Yeah.
And I'd pitched about 4 or 5 games, started about 4 or 5 games. And I had pitched the game the night before and thrown, I think, 7 innings, give up 3 runs. It was an okay start. Wasn't great. Wasn't by my standards. But I was sitting in the dugout, and the next day after you pitch, you chart. So I was charting the next day's pitchers. And our manager was Tony Pena, and he always had this phone with him that if that phone rang, we knew somebody was coming up or something was going on. So during the game, the phone rings. So everybody's like looking down, who could get the call up, da-da-da. I really had no idea. I was thinking, I didn't throw real well. They're probably going to call me up. But I'd been pitching pretty well except for that start. And phone rings, and he looks down the thing, comes walking down there, and he's not really saying much. And then he said, meet me in the tunnel. I'm thinking, man, I just got released.
Yeah.
Everything goes through your mind.
Right.
So I walked down in the tunnel, and he said, you need to pack your bags. You got to be in Montreal in the morning. And it was just almost like, the feeling that you get, it's almost like you're floating almost.
Sure.
It's just, you dreamed about this all your life. And the thing that was going through my mind was the craziest thing, but the next morning I get on the flight to go to Montreal, and all I can remember is just saying, please don't let this plane crash before I get there. Just let me have one day.
Right.
One day in the big league.
In the show.
Yeah.
Right.
At least you get your name down that you've been in the show. And I flew to Montreal, and they had told me when I got there, you're going to be in the bullpen at the very beginning. No, you've been a starter, but we're just going to get your feet wet till you get the hang of it, and we'll go from there. So, man, great. Sounds great to me. Let's go. Let's roll. So the next night, we're winning by a lot. We're beating the Expos by 12 or 13 runs, and they called me in the 8th. And I've always been a starter, so I had time to get ready. And they called me in the 8th and said, hey, going in the 8th. And I'm thinking, man, I ain't even stretched or anything, So I jump up and I start stretching. Well, Mike Jackson is in the bullpen with us. He pitched for the Indians for a long time. And he said, I'll jump up and get warm with you. If you're not ready, don't run out there and hurt yourself. I'll throw one out, and then you can come in. All right, so I throw like 5 or 6 throws, and I'm about to get on the hill. Well, he throws 7 times off the hill, and the inning's over. And I'm like, I haven't thrown a pitch off the mound yet, He goes, I'll get the first out, and you come in after me. He goes out there and throws 4 pitches and gets through the 8th inning. So I'm sitting there thinking, you've got to be kidding me, So anyway, I'm like, well, I'll be ready for the 9th, So I go out there in the 9th, and I pitch the 9th against the Expos. And actually, the first guy I got to face, or maybe the second guy I got to face, was Vladimir. And
wow,
I got the first strikeout with him, so it's pretty special.
That's cool. So by the second day you're in the show, you pitch at Montreal for the Astros.
We leave Montreal. That's the last day in Montreal. And the next day we're in Chicago facing the Cubs
You get to be in Wrigley.
with 38,000 people there.
That's amazing.
Yeah, probably
Was it?
I've never been there. I never got to go see the Cubs play before. So the first time I actually at Wrigley, I'm on the field, which is pretty special. And they called me in the office after the Montreal, said, that's what we want. You threw strikes and went right after them. That's what we're looking for. Sounds great. That's what I can do.
Right.
So the next day we're in Wrigley. It's the 8th inning. Scott Ellerton's pitching. He's winning 3-1. We have one guy on, one out, and they call down the bullpen and says, if the next guy gets on, you're coming in. And I'm thinking to myself, you just told me last night that I'm only coming in blowouts or if we're winning by a lot. So, he said, well, if the next guy gets on, Sammy's coming up and you're facing Sammy. So
Great. I get to go see Sammy Sosa.
Yeah, so third day I'm in the big leagues. I'm facing Sammy Sosa with 2 guys on, and we're winning by 2 in Wrigley with 2 outs. And I remember walking out on the field, and it's 38,000 people. They're going nuts, because Sammy's hitting 60, I think, that year, close to 60. So Tony Eusebio was actually catching that game. Brad Osmus wasn't catching that game. He comes walking out and said, throwing all fastballs. I said, man, that's what I can do. Let's go. So end up throwing, I think, 4 fastballs, and I struck him out on a fastball high.
Wow.
It was amazing how the sound level changed in that place, too. It was like you couldn't hear anything to, just sucked it out of it. Pretty neat.
Yeah. Roy Oswalt on the Out of Bounds show going into the Houston Astros Hall of Fame this summer, next week. In fact, joining us on the Modelo guest line and ESPN 105.9 The Zone. One more thing, other than obviously pitching at home, which I know is awesome. What was your was it Wrigley? Was it another park? What was your favorite park to compete and pitch in?
Wrigley was, it's amazing to me how they have 1 o'clock games and there's 38,000 people there every day. I was thinking no one has jobs in this town,
Right.
but just supported the team, unbelievable. Even, some of the early years, they wouldn't even be making hardly playoffs, and it would be 38,000 people there.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, with Kerry Wood and Mark Pryor got there, they got a little better, and then started making the playoffs and stuff. But it's just a great town. Everywhere you go, they know you. They'll bring up stuff about you from high school because they've read about you or something like that. And they're a real good town, a real passionate team.
Yeah. What about St. Louis?
St. Louis is great fans
Because that's
the nicest
big-time
fans
baseball.
in the big leagues for
Okay.
sure. They'll get on you. Never take it to extreme. You go to New York and it's a little different story. They take it a little too extreme.
Philadelphia?
Philadelphia's a tough place.
Yeah.
But I got to play there.
They're crazy.
Let's say whether you're wearing the home jersey or not.
Exactly.
I
I got to play there, and as long as you're doing well, Philadelphia's great. If you're not
Man.
doing too well, they'll get on you a little bit.
Yeah. Every now and then I'll flip on through an app, Philadelphia Sports Talk Radio. All they do is yell at each other. It's hilarious. Roy Oswalt on the Out of Bounds show. New restaurant, Taste in Starkville, 44 Prime coming. And that is exciting. And then, of course, also going in the Houston Astros Hall of Fame. I mean, that's
I like how you
pretty-
added that to the tag.
Yeah, I mean-
and by the way.
and hold on. What didn't you go into the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame either 2 years ago or 3 years ago, Roy?
Yes.
Somewhere in there?
Yes, 2 years ago.
Okay.
That's
That's awesome, too.
Mississippi Hall of Fame. Yep.
They do a good job.
Yes, they do.
That induction ceremony is this weekend, too,
Okay.
for the new. In fact, Janet Marie Smith is going in, the Mississippi State architect, part of Camden Yard, Turner, and now the Dodgers, Mississippi State alum, which is very, very cool. Blake?
Yeah, I only have a trillion questions, so get your pencil ready. First, I want to piggyback off what you just said, that story about striking out Sammy Sosa. So, you're aware probably of the shift in baseball of the high spin rate, high fastball mentality. But you've now mentioned twice that you like to throw the ball high. I knew that a little bit about it because I obviously watched you growing up. So did you know that you had a high spin rate did you know you had a deceptive fastball, or was this an instance of I've just grown up chunking it? I know they'll swing at it if I get it near the top of the zone, and it was more of a instinctual, here's my weapons, I'll use them. You didn't know what you were doing necessarily.
Spin rate's been around for a long time. Before ever it kind of got publicized, everyone was talking about spin, especially, breaking ball and fastball. My whole thing was growing up, I was a guy that had a long stride. I mean, I was 6'1". If you measured my stride, my stride would be 6'5" type guy. I had to use my lower half so much more than the guys that were bigger than me to be able to accelerate the ball, 95, 97 miles per hour. And my whole thing was, they went into a span for a long time in the big leagues about angle on the ball, about trying to create angle, where the hitters, it's hard to tell if you're going to be low or high from the angle of it. I was never going to be able to create angle. I wasn't tall enough to create angle. So my whole thing was to make the ball ride. And if I could make the ball spin faster than most of the guys, it's not really rising, but it's staying on the same plane.
It looks like it is to a hitter, yeah.
And I had so many guys tell me that I get a lot of strike 3 calls on fastballs right at the knee because they think it's going to be low, but it planes out the last few feet. And so I was real big about spin on the ball. If I could create that 12-6 back spin to make it true, I could make that ball ride on guys. And so many guys would hit under the ball, pop it back, foul it back, or swing under it. And a lot of guys give up on it when I threw it at the bottom of the knee because of the way it took off at the last.
Makes sense.
It's what we saw Ethan Small do for Mississippi State for his time in Mississippi State.
That's true.
He would deceive people with his fastball. They'd be underneath it every time.
Jack Leiter,
yeah.
to me, is a guy.
New Rangers pitcher. Sorry, no big deal.
Spin on the ball.
That kid's talented.
My second question would be to play off kind of, you already said that you faced Sammy Sosa, you faced Vladimir Guerrero, who we're seeing his son do incredible things with Toronto again. You pitched with Roy Halladay, one of the greats in Philadelphia. So can you give me like one of the guys that you maybe emulated or looked up to when you first got into the league that was a pitcher, and then one of your scariest or like most intense face-offs with a batter, right? Who was somebody that was really tough for you?
I'll start with batter. I mean, one of the toughest outs there was in the big league was Barry Bonds.
God, what a player.
I mean,
he wasn't any good, was he?
Golly.
He had a span there for 3 or 4 years that if you got any part of the strike zone, he was going to hit it somewhere. I mean, he may have not hit it out of the park, but it's going to be a line drive somewhere. You could get him out by, people catching the ball, but you're not going to get him out through the strike zone before he's striking him out. It just didn't happen. I was throwing hard when I first came up, really hard, and you weren't going to throw a ball by him. It's just type of guy. He could just sit there and wait on the ball so much longer. Most guys, when you're pitching, they have to start getting ready before the ball actually comes out of your hand. They're trying to get the timing down. Barry could stand still until the ball halfway there before he ever started.
That's so insane.
And
it is.
That's what made him so good because, I mean, you throw a breaking ball, he never lost his balance. His balance stayed, between his feet all the time. And these other guys had to have a timing on you, and you could create, havoc on them by moving the ball back and forth, up and down. When I was throwing 95, I could throw, 65 to 70 mile an hour curveball. Well, that's 30 mile an hour different. Guys were out on the front foot. And my whole thing was to try to get guys out early in the count so I could pitch deep into games to get ground ball after ground ball after ground ball. A lot of guys go in there and think about strikeout.
You were the Maddox approach.
Yeah, you can't strike out nobody until you get 2 strikes on them anyway. So let's get them out the first 2 strikes instead of trying to get them out the third one.
Yes.
And so once I learned that, I actually learned that from Greg Maddox's brother. He was my pitching coach in AA.
Really?
Yeah. And he
awesome.
actually challenged me that
Cool.
I couldn't get into the 9th inning with less than 100 pitches. And he told me, he said, if you can get into the 9th inning with less than 100 pitches, I'll give you $100 to start. Well, back then, when you're making $100 a month, $100 a start's a lot of money.
Amen.
So
to that.
it kind of made me, start pitching to contact where I can make them hit it on the handle or hit it off the end of the bat instead
That's
of trying to miss the bat
Yeah, it
every
is.
time. And I think, guys, these days, it's a totally different pitching mentality than it was when we came up. We was looking for the 9th inning. They're looking for the 5th inning now.
Yep.
And they're thinking about, let's punch as many people we can for 5 innings. We're going to bring in a 6th inning guy, 7th inning guy, 8th inning guy, 9th inning guy, and let them throw hard as they can throw and see what they can do after I come out. That's why you'll never see another 300-game winner, is because they don't throw deep enough into games. You got to throw deep into games to win games.
Yeah.
And you very seldom see guys that win 20 games anymore just because of that.
Interesting.
Roy Oswalt on the Out of Bounds Show, joining us on the Modelo guest line. He's going into the Houston Astros Hall of Fame. Just opened up a restaurant in Starkville with Craig and Michelle Fant, and then they will also have 44 Prime opening up in August.
Where'd they get that name from?
Yeah.
It's so weird.
And that's going to be exciting too. And Taste is rocking. The decor is really, it reminds me of a Charleston, South Carolina restaurant. Really cool feel, vibe, decor. Food is amazing. I'm still, navigating my way through the menu. But between the Wagyu meatballs, the flatbread, the ribeye, it is fantastic. And the bar area is super, super cool. And it's where the veranda was. So Taste is open. Follow them on Facebook. Blake, I know we could do this another hour. Maybe we'll
I was about to say, do we
maybe
have
we'll
to
get
send
Roy
them
in again, but we're going to have to let these guys go. They've got business meetings, and all sorts of good stuff. Roy, we could go a long time, but thank you so much for coming in today. Had a blast talking about your background and career. Excited for y'all as far as everything that y'all are doing, and I know you're excited about Taste.
I mean, it's one of the things I've been wanting to do for a while. Is I got to experience some of the coolest places you could eat at,
Sure.
through the years playing in the big leagues and getting to go to different towns and cities, experience some great food, and I wanted to bring that home. Craig and I got together and said, hey, let's try to bring this to Starkville and have an experience that they've never seen before. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to create, with both restaurants. Taste has been great, so far, and all the people have really loved it. We've got some great reviews from it, and 44 Prime is going to be pretty much the same thing. It's a top of the line type restaurant. You're going to get great food when you get in there,
Sure.
but the service is the biggest thing. And if you got great service, people will come back and eat with you. So we're going to start there and see how it goes. And Starkville's been a great place to live. I call it home and probably be there the rest of my life. So we wanted some great restaurants in town.
And the town's growing, and they just won a national championship. So a kind of good time.
That's what I was about to say.
Roy Oswalt and Craig Fan. Hey, we'll open Taste. The week after the Super Regional, and 2 weeks later, MSU wins the national championship.
We got to get 60 seconds from Roy as somebody who dreamed of playing at Mississippi State, grew up a fan, obviously has seen the highs and the lows. What was it like for you getting to watch a school you nearly played for, but that you really do care about, finally get over the hump?
Tremendous. Playing with guys from different schools that came in and played Mississippi State, every one of them loves it. It's just they couldn't say enough about Starkville, Duty Noble, the field, the way the atmosphere is. They love the way the guys cooked in the outfield, just so unique, coming in and get to experience that. And, it's the Cosmo Hall of baseball. I mean,
No doubt.
one of the best places to play. I told guys a lot of times that I can go in and talk to some of the guys, coaches bring me in, and I said, you guys, when you leave here, you're going to go down first.
That's what Cohen talks about.
I mean, it's a big jump from Mississippi State to low A ball.
Right.
I mean, it's just
nobody knows who you are.
nobody knows who you are.
Stands.
I mean, nobody understands, and you don't get paid any money. And I mean, which you don't get paid to stay, but I'm just saying you don't. It's pretty bad. I mean, that's chicken wire, a lot of fences. It's pretty bad. So you're going to go down first, but just remember, you're also going to go up when you get the further you go. Because I show a lot of. I tell a lot of people I think Mississippi State's a AA, AAA stadium. It looks a lot like it. I remember going into Dale Diamond and Texas, just blew me away the way the stadium was, and then also get to play in some of the AAA stadiums, just tremendous. So Mississippi State, is home for me. I grew up there, always been a fan. Great for the town, great for the people.
Now in business there. That's pretty cool. Roy Oswalt on the Out of Bounds Show. ESPN 105.9 The Zone. He joined us on the Modelo guest line. Check out Taste when you go to Starkville. It's located where the veranda was. Taste and follow them on Facebook. And then 44 Prime will be open in mid-August. And it's right by Georgia Blue where the Butcher Market was. So 44 Prime will be open in plenty of time before the Louisiana Tech and NC State home games. Craig's over there going, yes, I think that's going to happen. Roy Oswalt in the house. Congratulations to Roy for getting inducted into the Houston Astros Hall of Fame. Thanks for listening to the show. Don't forget that the podcast is on Apple Podcast. Search the Out of Bounds Show. We'll see you tomorrow.